All right, guys, let's talk about the iPhone 15 versus the iPhone 13. So this is a very common question. Matt, I have the 13. I'm looking to get the 15. So I would say I'm not crazy about this upgrade, but as always, I'm gonna do you guys' requests. Um, so it's 400 bucks, right? You're gonna spend 400 bucks, right? Is that really worth it? I want to go over some things because I'm not saying this is. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone. You make your own decision, right? But there are some things that need to look better, like the cameras for sure. It really comes down to what you think about that. And a few other things we're gonna go over. Hardware wise, both phones look pretty much the same and they feel pretty much the same. I would say the 15, it doesn't have as not sharp, but it's very squared off on the 13. So the 15 is not, and it feels a little bit better in the hand. Design wise, they both look, basically the same here. And you do have the matte finish, which I like. As you guys can see, it's not kind of picking up, smudges and stuff like that. And you really can't see the smudges that bad on this color. It just depends on how the light hits it. But yeah, it's a cleaner overall design. And there is going to be a few differences. You do go to USB Type-C on the iPhone 15. And that is pretty much it with the hardware between these two phones. There's nothing really, different about the phones. They both are IP68, dust and water resistant, and they're both about the same weight as well too. Around 170 grams. So, they're both pretty light phones for the most part. So as far as the display goes, there are, a few little upgrades here. One is, the most obvious. You go from this older notch on 13 to the newer dynamic island, so it gives it a more modern feel for sure. And overall, the specs are, actually pretty similar for the most part. Both of these phones have a 6.1-inch display. They're both Super Retina XDR OLED panels. They're both HDR10. The difference is that the 13, it has a 1200 nits peak brightness, and the 15 has 2000 nits. So the 15 is much easier to see. If it's outdoors and it's sunny outside, it's a much easier screen to see. They both pretty much have similar resolutions as well too, with the 13 having 1170 by 2532, 460 for the PPI, and the 15 having 1179 by 2556, 461. So basically they pretty much look identical when you look at them. They're both 60 hertz panels as well too, and they have a similar color profile. You really can't tell the difference there. It's like a subtle difference, but it's nothing, that is really noticeable. But I would say the biggest difference is, I think, going to be more so the aesthetic difference of, having that dynamic island. And with the dynamic island, guys, you can kind of interact with it. It's like pseudo multitasking, basically. So if I start a timer, you guys can see it becomes animated. You order something from like DoorDash and it'll pop up with a timer. So it's kind of useful in that way, but I rarely, interact with it. But yeah, it does bring a little bit of kind of like a multitasking function to it. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Like I said, they both are very sharp and they both are very nice looking panels. It's more of an aesthetic upgrade and the brightness is a little bit better. All right, so both phones are currently on iOS 26. The difference here is the 13 has the Apple A15 Bionic chipset, 128 gigs and 4 gigs of RAM, and the 15 has the A16 chip, 128 gigs and 6 gigs of RAM. So you can see the score difference here. I would say performance between these two phones is actually very minimal. I think I have Wildlife Extreme on here. Yes, the performance on the 15 is going to be better, of course, in these benchmarks. We get slightly higher Geekbench scores, slightly higher GPU frame rates, and 3D Mark. In real life, I would say not really that big of a difference. As you guys can see, they're kind of loading up the same. The 13 handles iOS 26 pretty well with the animations and everything. So I wouldn't say that is a big deal. But I could see maybe like down the line when the 13 gets another, like the iOS 27, maybe it'll start having some issues, possibly. But as you guys can see, it's not really a big difference in performance. So most people who have the 13 typically don't have performance issues. Maybe we got like an app frozen right there or something. So restart that. Boom. So I don't have any heating issues as well with the 13. So it really depends on your experience with these two phones or with this 13 chipset. If you feel like it's slow, then I guess it would make sense. But if it's not slow, as you guys can see, it's still going to be on par with the 15. Even with the lower RAM. So also another benefit with the 15 is that you will be able to multitask a lot better. It'll keep applications open. But there's no like actual speed difference between these two phones, as you guys can see. Now, one thing that you will notice is more like little animation hiccups with the 13. That is something I have noticed with iOS 26. So that's why I said down the line, it kind of like happens randomly. It's not something that's like really consistent, but it does happen. Like it just randomly will do like a little freeze up. But like I said, they're pretty similar. Now again, there is no difference in performance when it comes to, you know, gaming. They're both going to play at 60 frames. And like I said, they both feel very similar. You're going to have to pay the extra like $100 and get the 15 Pro if you want like a different, you know, a better gaming experience, because that'll give you 120 frames. But if you stick with this base model, again, you're going to be basically gaming the same. It's not going to be that different. Maybe you will see like you know, better battery life when gaming and stuff like that, but overall the frame rates feel the same. The heat on the 13 is fine. Like I'm not a huge gamer, mobile gamer, but playing games on these two phones, like I said, the experience, it just feels extremely similar on both of these phones, because most people, they're probably in here for a match or two. They're not doing like serious gaming. So I would say it's not necessarily a speed upgrade between these two phones. If there's any speaker upgrade, we're at max volume. Both phones sound actually really good. I'm pretty impressed with the 13. The only difference I really hear is that the 15 speakers are a little bit better on the low bass notes. I can hear it a little bit more clearly. But the iPhone 13, I can hear the 808s. It is, you know, pretty punchy as well. And they both have good sound. So I would say the 15 is slightly better when it comes to giving you an overall more balanced sound. Because the 13 does kind of fall flat when it comes to those low bass notes. You kind of can't hear them as clearly as the 15. But I would say, yeah, the speaker upgrade is pretty minimal. Of course, your Face ID is basically going to be on touch, so it's not going to really feel any quicker or anything like that. Most people want to know, will my pictures and video look better? So I'm going to show you guys these side-by-side stills. The camera setup is, you know, pretty similar. But you have a 48 megapixel standard camera on the 15 versus the 12 megapixel on the 13, and then we have a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera on both of these phones, and they actually both will shoot at 4K 24 through 60, and then they both have a 12 megapixel selfie that also shoots 4K 24 through 60. So it's not going to be a, you know, massive difference here. If we look into the camera settings here, we basically have, you know, similar settings here for the most part here. Now we do have an action mode on the 15, so basically what that will do is stabilize video. You can see that option is not here on the 13, but those are basically the essential differences between these phones. But check out the shots, let me know what you guys think.